Again, here we are for a little daily JavaScript. And the last time that we did this, I just made a simple for loop here that gets all the letters of the alphabet and just prints them in the console here, right? So there's all the letters A to Z, right? And let's imagine that you've got some game or some learning app or something, and what you want to do is you want to present the letters of the alphabet, but you want to randomize them. Okay, so you want to, you want them all in an array maybe, but you want them in a random order. So, randomizing an array is actually a very interesting topic, and it comes up a lot. Like, you're making games and things, and those things need a random list of stuff, right? It might be good for images too. Maybe you want to create a random slideshow. So maybe you have the names of the images in an array, and then you want to randomize that array so it's always a different order, right? And there's a lot of ways to approach this. Let's give it a try here just for a couple ideas, right? I'm going to make a variable here that will be an array, and instead of adding all of the letters to the console and displaying them in the console, why don't we put each letter in the array, right? So what we can do is we can say array dot push string from character code I, right? And then if we wanted to see our array down here, we could say console dot log our array. Okay, there we go. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Right, so there we go. Okay, hey, but it's not random yet. Let's do the random part. Okay, so there's our array, simple. That was pretty easy, right? Very little code. Better maybe than typing, an array with all the letters in it, right? We're just using a loop here to make them. We could switch them all to the lowercase by just changing that one letter. That's kind of nice, right? I mean, this example is not the example that you're going to use all the time, but I think it shows how if you set your code up smart, the code can work for you, right? So you always want to be looking for ideas like that that's going to improve the way that you use your code, okay? Now let's randomize our array. So to do it, what I'm going to do is loop through here. Let's call this guy random array, right? So I'm going to start with a normal array here, okay? This is called array, and then what I want to do is create a second array that will have a randomized list in it. So it'll be empty right now, and then we'll use our for loop again, and we'll say for variable I in array. So this is for each item, for each index of array, I will be the value of the index. And it'll, it's going to loop once for every item. And then what I want to do is I want to say, let's say random array dot splice, okay? And splice takes a couple arguments, okay? There's a few arguments you can use here, and you don't have to use them all. Some of them are optional. So the first argument is the position. Okay, so this is where you want to randomize something. So we'll just call that position for now, okay? The next is how many items you're going to remove. So I don't want to remove any items, so I'm going to put a 0 here. Remember before we used a 1. I think I did a video where I used splice to remove items from an array, right? So we'd say, position and remove one item, but here we don't want to remove anything, so we'll put a 0 there. And then the last parameter here is items that you want to add to the array, and you're going to splice those in at this position. So you can see splice could be used to remove some items and then add items at that position, right? So what we need is a random position, right? And then we want to splice the item into that position. So we'll say, what do we want to splice here? We want to do array bracket I, right? So that's, we're going to take every letter here in order, A, B, C, D, right? And splice it into this array at a random position. So the first one, since there's 0 items in here, the first one will go at 0, but then the next one might go at position 0 or position 1. And then the next one might go at position 0, 1, 2, or 3, right? And that way they'll all get jumbled up, right? So how do we get a random position? So this needs to be a random number from 0 to the number of items in random array. So what we'll do is this. We'll say math dot random, and this generates a random number between 0 and 1. Okay? And what we want to do is we want to multiply that times random array dot length. Maybe I'll do this. This is getting really long. Why don't we just do this? Why don't we take that out of there and we'll put position back in here, and we'll just make position a variable. Be a little easier to read, right? So we'll say var position equals math random times random array dot length. Right now the problem here though is math random is going to give us a number something like this, like something like that, right? And then if we multiply times, let's say 2, because maybe there's 2 items in the array, then we're going to get 2 times this number, whatever it is, right? So that's not going to be very useful, right? Because the positions in the array are all whole numbers, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to use Math.round, okay? And that's going to round our number off to the nearest whole number, okay? So, if you take Math.random and multiply times another value, then you'll get a range of 0 to that value. And if you round it off, then we'll get a whole number, right? So let's give it a try. And then we'll say, console.log random array. Okay, and then we can compare the two because we will have, printed this array above, right? So we'll save them and refresh it here. Oh, look, so this first one is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and the second one is B, Y, J, U, S, G, Q, right? So that looks pretty random. Let's try it again. Yeah, it's different this time. So anyway, there's one way to do, random items in an array. Maybe that's useful for some purposes, right? Thanks for watching, and I hope that is good for you. Thanks.